The morning fog lay thick over the small mountain village, turning the trees into shadowy giants. Birds were quiet, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. 6-year-old Lena tiptoed through the damp forest, her small hands brushing against moss-covered rocks. She loved exploring, even though the villagers warned her to stay close to home. Today, something unusual drew her deeper into the woods. A strange glow coming from a hidden cave she had never noticed before. Her heart beat fast with excitement and fear, but curiosity pushed her forward. As Lena entered the cave, the light grew brighter, warm and golden, reflecting off smooth stones. In the middle of the cave lay a large egg, unlike any she had ever seen. It shimmered slightly, with colors that seemed to move under its shell. Lena knelt down, her tiny fingers trembling as she reached toward it. A voice inside her whispered, "Don't touch it." But another part of her, braver and bolder, said, "It's beautiful." Just as her fingers brushed the surface, a loud crack echoed through the cave. The egg shivered violently. Lena jumped back, wide-eyed, and watched as deep cracks spread across the shell. Suddenly, the top of the egg broke open, and a small, terrifying head poked out. The hatchling blinked at Lena with glowing amber eyes. Smoke curled from tiny nostrils, and sharp, spiky scales covered its tiny body. Its claws dug into the stone floor, and a low hiss escaped its throat. Lena froze for a moment, her heart pounding. The hatchling looked fearsome, a creature from nightmares, yet Lena felt a strange warmth inside her chest. She crouched lower, leaning closer, and whispered softly, "You're cute." The hatchling tilted its head, as if understanding her words. Its small wings trembled, and it let out a soft hiss that sounded almost like a purr. Lena's eyes sparkled. She had never felt this way about anything scary before. Her tiny hands reached out again, and this time the hatchling didn't pull away. Instead, it nudged her fingers gently with its snout. A bond, invisible but strong, formed in that instant, surprising both Lena and the creature. She laughed softly, and the dragon-like hatchling made a chirping sound, almost like it was laughing with her. But the forest outside was not as quiet as it had seemed. Lena didn't notice the shadows moving between the trees, eyes watching from afar. The villagers often whispered about strange happenings in the mountains, about monsters and magic hidden from the human eye. They would not understand this bond. Lena did not care. She wanted to protect her new friend, no matter what. She gently lifted the hatchling, careful of its sharp claws, and felt its tiny heart beat against hers. It was alive, powerful, and yet innocent in its own way. Hours passed as Lena and the hatchling explored the cave together. She discovered that the creature was playful, chasing light beams and curling around her small arms. But every now and then, it hissed sharply, and Lena noticed its scales glowing faintly in warning. Something about this creature was more than ordinary. Lena's mind buzzed with questions. Where did it come from? Why had it chosen her? And most importantly, could she keep it safe from the world outside? Evening fell, and the fog returned, swallowing the cave in shadows. Lena knew she could not bring the hatchling to her home. Villagers would panic. They might even hurt it. She carried it back to a hidden part of the forest, a small clearing surrounded by rocks and trees. The hatchling curled up in the grass, eyes closing for the first time since hatching. Lena sat beside it, feeling its warmth against her side, and whispered stories she made up about dragons, knights, and secret adventures. Though small, she promised silently to protect it with her life. As Lena turned to leave, a distant howl echoed through the mountains. She paused, sensing danger. Someone was moving in the woods, closer than before. The hatchling stirred in her arms, sensing it too. Its tiny body trembled, and smoke rose in a small curl from its nostrils. Lena tightened her grip, heart racing. She realized that their world had changed in one moment. What started as a quiet day of exploration had turned into the beginning of something far larger, far more dangerous than she could imagine. A terrible, thrilling adventure had begun, and neither Lena nor the hatchling would ever be the same again. The fog thickened, the shadows deepened, and Lena walked home slowly, her mind racing with questions and possibilities. Behind her, hidden in the trees, glowing eyes watched silently. The hatchling was not just a creature to love, it was a force that could change everything. And someone or something wanted it too. The sun rose slowly over the village, painting the forest in shades of gold and green. Lena woke early, her small hands reaching instinctively toward the hidden spot where the hatchling slept. The tiny dragon stirred at her touch, stretching its wings carefully, tiny claws scrabbling in the soft moss. Lena smiled. She had never felt such a strong connection with anyone or anything before. The hatchling blinked its amber eyes at her and let out a small hiss that sounded almost like a laugh. Today, Lena decided, they would spend time together, learning about each other, discovering the strange magic that bound them. She carried the hatchling to a sunlit clearing nearby, a place where the tall trees opened to the sky. The little dragon seemed curious, sniffing the flowers, hopping over rocks, and trying its tiny wings. Lena laughed and ran along with it, giggling as it followed her, wobbling and flapping in the air. Its scales glimmered in the sunlight, flickering gold, red, and green, as though the forest itself had blessed it with magic. Despite its terrifying claws and sharp teeth, Lena felt no fear, only joy and wonder. She whispered stories to it as they played, inventing names for the plants and the rocks, imagining themselves as heroes in a secret world no one else could see. But the hatchling was no ordinary creature. Lena quickly noticed strange abilities emerging. When it leapt into the air, the wind seemed to bend around it, carrying its tiny roar farther than it should. When it hissed at a curious squirrel or bird, the animals froze, terrified, as if sensing a hidden power. Lena's heart raced with excitement and worry. She realized that the hatchling was not just cute, it was dangerous too, powerful beyond her understanding. And yet, she felt it trusted her completely. Every hiss, every movement, every blink of those glowing eyes seemed to communicate something only she could understand. A bond, invisible but strong, grew between them, a promise of protection and friendship neither could speak but both could feel. As the day passed, Lena explored more of the forest with her companion. They climbed hills, splashed in streams, and hid behind rocks while the village remained far below, unaware of the extraordinary creature nearby. Lena noticed the hatchling reacting to sounds and movements she could not hear or see, tilting its head, crouching, or flaring its tiny wings. It was intelligent, smarter than any animal she had ever known. Lena felt a thrill of pride. "You're amazing," she whispered, brushing a clawed hand against its soft underbelly. The hatchling nuzzled her shoulder, a warm gesture that made her laugh. But not everything in the forest was safe. Shadows lingered between the trees, and Lena sensed eyes watching them from afar. Hunters and strangers occasionally wandered too close, and the hatchling's scales would glow faintly, warning her of danger. One afternoon, as Lena played with it near the stream, a distant cry echoed from the forest edge. The hatchling froze instantly, its body low to the ground, wings trembling. Lena grabbed its small claws, whispering urgently, "It's okay. I'm here." But the glow in its scales intensified, and Lena realized their secret was not safe. Someone, somewhere, was aware of the dragon's presence, and they were coming closer. Despite the lurking danger, Lena refused to fear. She understood, even at 6 years old, that the hatchling needed her as much as she needed it. She began creating small hiding spots in the forest, caves, bushes, and rocky nooks, where the hatchling could rest safely when the villagers or strangers wandered too near. She taught it small games, like fetching sticks or following her silently, and learned to understand its gestures and sounds. Each day their trust grew, stronger than the day before, weaving a secret world where Lena and the hatchling were inseparable, a team that no one else could touch. But that night, as Lena lay in her small bed at home, she could not stop thinking about the glowing eyes she had seen earlier. The forest felt too quiet, too still, and she knew that the outside world was already shifting toward them. The hatchling was more than just a friend. It was a being of ancient power, one that could change the balance of everything around it. Lena's mind raced with questions and fears, yet she felt a strange calm inside. They had each other. No one could take that away. And if anyone tried, the hatchling would not be just a small creature anymore. It would be a force to be reckoned with. Morning would bring new adventures, new games, and new discoveries. But Lena also understood that danger was coming, creeping closer with each passing hour. And when it arrived, she and her hatchling would face it together, stronger than anyone expected, their bond unbreakable. The forest was alive with possibilities, the wind whispering secrets, and Lena knew deep inside that life, as she knew it, had already changed forever. The forest had grown quiet, almost too quiet, as if it held its breath for something unseen. Lena and the hatchling had become inseparable. Each day, their bond deepened, and Lena began to understand the subtle ways the dragon communicated. Through flicks of its tail, hisses, chirps, and even the color of its scales. But the more she learned, the more mysterious the creature became. Its powers were growing, and Lena sensed that there was much about it she did not yet understand. The hatchling could move faster than any animal she had ever seen. Its tiny wings, though fragile-looking, could carry it high into the trees, and its glowing amber eyes seemed to pierce the shadows around them. One afternoon, Lena followed the hatchling deeper into the forest than ever before. They arrived at a hidden glade, a place where sunlight streamed through the trees in golden beams, illuminating an ancient circle of stones. The hatchling moved to the center of the circle and hissed softly, almost as if calling something unseen. Lena crouched beside it, feeling a shiver of awe and fear. Suddenly, the hatchling's scales flared bright red and gold, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lena reached out instinctively, and the stones around them seemed to hum, vibrating under her fingers. For a moment, the world felt alive in a way she had never experienced. The hatchling looked at her, and Lena realized that it was showing her something important. As Lena watched, small visions began to flicker before her eyes. Images of dragons soaring over mountains, flames lighting up dark skies, and strange, powerful creatures moving through forests far beyond her village. She gasped, stepping back, unsure if what she saw was real or a trick of her mind. The hatchling chirped and nudged her gently, as if to say, "I can show you, but you must be ready." Lena's heart pounded. She was only 6, yet she felt a responsibility she could barely understand. This creature was not just a pet. It was part of an ancient, powerful lineage, and she was now connected to it in a way that could change everything. But danger was never far behind. Lena sensed movement in the shadows, flickers of light between the trees, and hushed whispers carried by the wind. Someone or something was following them. The hatchling's scales glowed a warning red, and its tiny wings trembled with tension. Lena's stomach tightened with fear, yet she knew she could not run. She hugged the creature tightly and whispered, "We're together. Nothing will hurt us." But even as she said it, she realized the truth. The forest was no longer safe. The secret of the hatchling had begun to reach the outside world, and forces far beyond her understanding were now aware of its existence. That evening, Lena returned home, the hatchling hidden beneath her cloak. She placed it carefully in the small clearing she had prepared, watching as it curled up, tiny claws tucked under its chin. Sleep would not come easy. Her mind replayed the visions from the glade, the dragons, the power, and the sense of a world much larger than her own. The hatchling stirred slightly, as if sensing her unease, and Lena whispered softly, "I'll protect you, I promise." The creature chirped, almost reassuring her in return, but Lena could not shake the feeling that something urgent was approaching. Over the next few days, strange events began to occur. Villagers reported hearing odd noises in the forest, strange lights flickering in the trees, and animals behaving oddly. Lena realized with a jolt that these events were connected to the hatchling. It was not just a secret anymore. It was a presence that could not stay hidden for long. And then, one night, Lena glimpsed shadows moving with purpose at the edge of the forest. Eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, watching, waiting. Someone had discovered the hatchling, and Lena knew in her heart that they would not stop until they had it. Despite the growing danger, Lena felt a sense of determination stronger than ever. The hatchling was her friend, her secret, and now, part of a story far greater than herself. Together, they would face whatever was coming. The forest seemed to whisper warnings and promises, the wind carrying hints of battles and adventures yet to unfold. Lena held the hatchling close and looked toward the dark horizon. She understood that their lives were changing, that the peaceful days in the village were over. The secrets had been revealed, and with them came a responsibility far beyond what any 6-year-old should bear. But Lena did not waver. She would stand by her friend no matter what, and she knew one thing for certain. The world was about to discover the true power of the hatchling. The night fell heavy over the mountains, stars hidden by dark clouds that carried the weight of something sinister. Lena sat in the clearing with the hatchling nestled beside her, its warm body pressed close to her side. She whispered softly, telling it stories about knights and kingdoms, but her heart was restless. For days, she had felt the presence of eyes in the forest, watching from the shadows. The hatchling sensed it too. Its scales flickered faint light whenever danger crept close, a warning that never failed to make Lena shiver. Tonight, that glow had not stopped for even a moment. The stillness of the forest shattered when a twig cracked nearby. The hatchling lifted its head sharply, nostrils flaring, a soft hiss rolling from its throat. Lena froze, her wide eyes searching the trees. Then she saw him, a tall figure stepping out from the shadows. He wore a cloak of dark leather, a bow strapped across his back, and his eyes gleamed with cold determination. This was no villager. This was a hunter, one who knew exactly what he was searching for. His gaze fell on Lena, then dropped to the hatchling at her side. A cruel smile curved across his lips. "So the stories were true," the hunter said quietly, his voice carrying an edge sharp as steel. "A dragon hatchling, and guarded by a child. What foolish luck." Lena's chest tightened with fear, but she did not move. The hatchling stood in front of her, wings trembling, tiny chest swelling with a low growl. The hunter reached for his bow, pulling an arrow slowly from his quiver, his movements steady, practiced. Lena's small hands curled into fists. "You can't take him," she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. "He's mine." The hunter chuckled darkly. "Little girl, that creature is not a toy. It is a weapon. Left to grow, it will bring fire and ruin. I will save your people from its wrath." The hatchling suddenly roared, a sound small yet filled with raw fury. Its scales glowed bright red, casting flashes of light across the trees. The hunter flinched, surprised by the intensity of the sound, but quickly regained his composure, raising his bow. Lena's heart pounded. She threw herself in front of the hatchling, arms spread wide. Tears filled her eyes, but her voice was unshaken. "If you hurt him, you'll hurt me first." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. The hunter's eyes narrowed, studying her. He had seen warriors face dragons with less courage than this child. Something about her stance, her determination, unsettled him. He lowered the bow slightly, but his expression remained cold. "Do you think you can protect it forever? Others will come, stronger than me. If you truly care for it, you should let it go, or let me end it now." The hatchling growled again, smoke curling from its nostrils. Lena shook her head fiercely, her small body trembling but unmoving. "He's not evil. He's not dangerous. He's my friend." The words echoed in the clearing, soft but filled with unshakable belief. For a fleeting moment, the hunter hesitated, the arrow slackening in his hand. But then, distant voices carried through the trees. More men were coming, their footsteps heavy on the forest floor. The hunter glanced over his shoulder, then back at Lena. His eyes hardened. "You've already been found," he said. "And when they arrive, no plea will save you or your dragon." Lena gasped, realizing the truth. This was only the beginning. Others were closing in, drawn by the whispers of a dragon hatchling. The hunter slipped back into the shadows, his figure vanishing like smoke. but his warning lingered, heavy in her chest. She clutched the hatchling tightly, feeling its small body quake with fury and fear. The clearing no longer felt safe. The forest itself seemed to whisper of danger and betrayal. That night, Lena and the hatchling fled deeper into the wilderness, leaving behind the places they once called safe. She guided it through rivers and over rocks, her small body exhausted, but she never let go of its clawed hand. The hatchling stayed close, protective, its glowing eyes scanning the dark for threats. Lena's thoughts raced with fear. Hunters were coming, men with weapons, men who would never see the hatchling as anything but a monster. She whispered again and again, "I'll protect you, I promise." The words kept her moving even as her legs ached and her lungs burned. By dawn, they had found shelter in an old cave high in the cliffs. Lena collapsed against the cold stone, the hatchling curling beside her. Together they watched the sunrise creep over the horizon. For the first time, Lena realized that her life would never return to the simple days of play and laughter. She was hunted now, and so was her friend. But as she stroked the hatchling's scaled head, she felt a surge of strength inside her. The world could chase them, but she would never give him up. They would face every threat together, no matter how dangerous. And in the shadows of the trees far below, the hunter watched the cave with narrowed eyes. He had seen their escape, and he knew others would soon arrive. The girl thought she could protect the hatchling, but she had no idea of the storm that was coming. The morning air was cold and sharp as Lena held the hatchling close against her chest, the cave high in the cliffs giving them only a fragile sense of safety. Her eyes were heavy from lack of sleep, but her heart would not rest. Below, the forest stretched endlessly, a sea of green, but hidden within its shadows were men who hunted them. The hunter's warning echoed in her mind. Others were coming, stronger, faster, determined. She stroked the hatchling's scaled head, whispering, "We'll run. We'll find a way. They won't catch us." The hatchling's amber eyes glowed in response, as if it understood every word. By midday, Lena heard them, the distant crack of branches, the shouts of men, the bark of hounds carried through the forest like a drumbeat of doom. The hatchling stiffened, wings half spread, its small body vibrating with tension. Lena's tiny hands shook as she looked around the cave. They could not stay. If the men reached them here, it would be the end. Without another thought, she picked up her friend and began climbing down the rocky cliffside. The hatchling dug its claws into the stone, helping steady her as they descended, working together in desperate silence. The moment their feet touched the forest floor, the chase began. Voices grew louder, closer. Arrows hissed through the air, striking trees with sharp thuds. Lena gasped and stumbled forward, clutching the hatchling as they ran deeper into the wilderness. The forest seemed alive with danger, branches whipping at her face, roots snagging her small feet, and the heavy sound of boots pounding ever closer. The hatchling growled, its scales flashing red, then gold, warning her of threats behind every shadow. Lena's chest burned, but she pushed forward, driven by fear and determination. The hunters were fast, but the hatchling was faster. With a sudden burst, it wriggled from Lena's arms, wings flapping furiously. It lifted into the air, not far, but enough to soar ahead and circle back, guiding her path. Lena followed its glow, weaving between trees as arrows rained around her. The hunters shouted in frustration, startled by the hatchling's sudden display of power. Flames sparked from its mouth, small but fierce, igniting patches of grass that forced the men to scatter. Lena's eyes widened. This was no helpless creature anymore. Her friend was becoming something stronger, something the hunters feared. But the danger grew worse. A pack of hounds broke through the underbrush, teeth bared, growls rumbling low and hungry. Lena screamed, stumbling backward. The hatchling landed in front of her, wings spread wide, eyes blazing like fire. It roared, a sound far too powerful for its size. The hounds froze mid-charge, whining in sudden terror. One by one, they turned and fled into the trees, tails tucked between their legs. Lena stared in disbelief, her chest heaving. The hatchling glanced back at her and chirped proudly, as if to say, "See? I can protect you too." For a moment, hope flickered in Lena's heart. Maybe they could survive this. Maybe the hunters weren't as strong as they seemed. But that hope was short-lived. The hunter she had seen before stepped out from the shadows ahead, his bow drawn, his eyes sharp with cruel determination. "You can run, little girl," he said, his voice cold. "But the dragon will always betray you. Its nature cannot be tamed." He loosed an arrow, and Lena cried out as it sliced past her, barely missing the hatchling. The hatchling shrieked, its scales blazing brighter than ever before. A burst of fire erupted from its mouth, scorching the ground between them and the hunter. Smoke filled the clearing, the flames forcing him to retreat. Lena grabbed the hatchling's claws and ran again, deeper into the forest, her lungs burning, her legs aching, but her spirit unbroken. She could hear the hunters regrouping, their voices filled with anger and fear. They had underestimated the hatchling, but they would not stop. The chase would not end until either the hunters claimed their prize, or Lena and her dragon found true safety. As the sun dipped below the trees, painting the forest in red and gold, Lena and the hatchling stumbled into a rocky canyon. The air was still, heavy with silence. They were alone for now. Lena collapsed against the stone wall, clutching the hatchling tightly. Her tears fell freely, but they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of exhaustion, of fear, and of fierce love. She kissed the top of the hatchling's scaled head and whispered, "We're still here. They didn't take you, and they never will." The hatchling chirped softly, curling its body around her like a shield. For the first time, Lena realized that they were no longer just hiding or running. They were fighting back together. The world had turned against them, but she would not give in. The chase was not over, it had only begun. And somewhere beyond the trees, more hunters were gathering, drawn by the fire and the roar of a dragon that was no longer just a hatchling. The night was heavy with silence as Lena and the hatchling hid deep within the rocky canyon. The stars above glittered faintly, but the forest beyond still burned with the echoes of pursuit. The hunters had not given up. Lena knew they would come again, stronger and more desperate, but she also knew something inside her had changed. She was no longer just a frightened little girl. She was the guardian of something far greater, and she would not let anyone take it away. The hatchling pressed close against her side, its scales glowing faintly, its amber eyes steady with trust. Together, they waited for what was to come. By dawn, the sound of marching feet shook the ground. Dozens of hunters appeared at the canyon's edge, their weapons glinting in the morning light. The leader stepped forward. The same man Lena had faced before, his bow drawn, his cold eyes burning with determination. His voice echoed across the canyon. "Give us the dragon, child, and you will be spared. Resist, and both of you will fall." The words carried power, but Lena felt no fear. She rose slowly, her tiny figure standing tall against the crowd, the hatchling by her side. "He's not a monster," she shouted. "He's my friend, and I will never let you take him." The hunters laughed, their cruel voices bouncing off the stone walls. But the hatchling did not cower. It stepped forward, wings spread wide, its scales glowing brighter than the sun. A roar erupted from its throat, no longer small but powerful and deep, shaking the very air. Flames burst across the canyon floor, forming a blazing wall between Lena and the hunters. The men staggered back in shock, shielding their faces from the heat. The leader snarled, raising his bow, but before he could fire, the hatchling leapt high into the air. Its wings, once weak and clumsy, now beat with strength and purpose, carrying it above the hunters in a dazzling arc of firelight. Arrows flew, but the hatchling was faster. With a mighty sweep of its wings, it sent a burst of wind that knocked the hunters to the ground. The fire roared higher, cutting them off from Lena. She stood in awe, her heart swelling with pride and wonder. The tiny creature she had once called cute had become a protector, fierce and unstoppable. Yet even in its fury, Its eyes never lost the warmth it carried for her. This was not a beast of destruction. This was her friend, her family, her miracle. The hunters scrambled to retreat, fear breaking their once solid resolve. The leader glared at Lena one last time, his face twisted with rage, but he knew the truth. They could not win. Not against the fire. Not against the bond that had made the hatchling stronger than any weapon. With a bitter curse, he vanished into the shadows, his men fleeing behind him. The canyon fell silent, the flames dying down until only smoke curled lazily into the sky. Lena dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks. Not from fear, but from relief. The hatchling landed beside her, its chest heaving, its scales glowing softly now. She threw her arms around its neck, hugging it tightly. "We did it," she whispered. "We're safe." The hatchling chirped softly, nudging her face, as if to say, "We did it together." As the sun rose higher, the forest seemed to breathe again. Birds sang, the wind carried the scent of pine, and the shadows that once threatened them melted away. Lena and the hatchling walked out of the canyon, hand in claw, their bond unbreakable. The world still held dangers, but they no longer felt powerless. They had faced the hunters and survived. They had stood together and won. From that day forward, Lena was never seen as just a small girl. She became the child who walked beside a dragon, the guardian of something ancient and powerful. And though the villagers whispered and the world beyond trembled with curiosity, Lena only smiled. Because to her, the hatchling was not terrifying. It was not awful. It was her friend, her family, and her future. High above the trees, the hatchling spread its wings, catching the morning light. With a joyful roar, it lifted Lena onto its back and soared into the sky. The wind rushed against her face as she laughed freely, holding on tight. Below, the forest stretched endlessly, but above, the heavens opened wide with promise. Together, they rose higher, free and unafraid, two souls bound forever by love and trust. And so, what began as a secret in a cave became the beginning of a legend. A girl and her dragon, standing together against the world, and finding in each other not fear, but hope.